Hi there, welcome back to one of my fish room tour videos. It's been a while since I've put a video out. We've had quite a few changes here in the fish room, so let's just get into it and have a look. Alright, so in the first tank, this is my Zebra Pleco tank, L046, Hypensistrus Zebra. There's only 6 of them in here. I've been trying to breed them for the past couple of years. They're now 4 years old, these Plecos. I'm convinced I have male and female. I just don't seem to be getting much luck with the breeding. I do get a good bit of activity. They've been trapping. Typically I've noticed that between March and August I don't really get much activity from them in terms of breeding, and it's normally around September, October time here in the UK that these guys, at least for my fish, show some activity. We can see here they're all max size, fully grown. In here, this little cave here, you can see this one's got some of its scales missing where there's been a few scraps, and that's one of my males. And right next to him is a female, so you never know, we might get lucky. But yeah, these are doing really good. Not too much to report on at the moment. I have no issues with this aquarium. They just sit in there, eating their food, resting in their caves. They are beautiful fish. You can see why so many people want them. They're just really striking. Okay, on to the next aquarium. So up here I've got my 2 Neocaridina Shrimp tanks. So I have yellow in this tank, and I have blue in this tank, and they're the only things in this tank. These are 20 US gallons, and I just let them run wild. I had noticed this year it's been relatively warm, I'd say, in the last couple of months here in the UK, and what I've noticed is that it slows down my shrimp from breeding. These guys, they like it to be a bit cooler, and I was getting a bit worried because I hadn't seen any buried shrimp or shrimplets for a couple of months, and I was starting to worry that I might have a problem. But just this week I've seen a couple of the females buried, and you can see that a lot of the males are just darting around, and that typically means that there's some pheromones in the water and a couple of females which are ready to spawn. So hopefully we'll see quite a few more. And you can see up here on a courgette that I've got, I'll see if I can zoom in for you. It's not going to focus. Let me see if I can move. Let's see if I can move her. There's a big female on here, and my camera doesn't want to focus, but this big female here, going to focus for me? No. There's one just below actually, buried. These 2 right here are buried, so that's good to see. They're not difficult to breed as shrimp go, Neocaridina. Most common that you'll find that breed. But yeah, which is why it's probably a bit of a odd surprise that they stopped for quite a bit. Whereas you compare that to my blues, these are just doing brilliant now. A few years ago, had these for nearly 4 years now, and when I first got them, a lot of them looked like this one here on this plant. Just gone away. Essentially with not very deep blue, but from just pulling out the ones like that, which I will have to catch that one at some point. Over time I've ended up with some very nice deep blue. At the moment I'm feeding these shrimp Ebo, Aquaristicks, shrimp granules, shrimp sticks, Very similar to the Shrimp King. Shrimp King food. Let's pop one in here. I'll pop another one in here. They go nuts for this. And in here I have my Bloody Mary shrimp. There's not many left. This summer I had a bit of an incident with the heat wave. We had a heat wave a couple of days and I had a tank filled with my red cherries. It lost air and I lost the vast majority of them, and those that were left I took out of that aquarium and put into here, which is where I used to have them probably about a year ago anyway, and I'm just trying to get them back up to numbers. But living with them as well, some young celestial Pildanios, and I'm not trying to breed these too much as I used to, and I'll show you a tank with the adults in a minute and you'll understand why. But I just, every now and then I'll catch out a male and a couple of females and just pop them in here, then get them out again, and then the eggs hatch and you get a few celestial Pildanios. There's probably about 6 in here, so it's nothing major. Probably could have left them in a bit longer to get a few more eggs, but yeah, this tank is quite limited at the moment, but the Java moss is just going absolutely nuts, which is great. And I use that in various other tanks as and when it gets full on. In this tank is my adult celestial Pildanios. You'll see them all swimming around there. Let's see if I can get a good shot. So you can see the males, they're the ones with the more orange on their fins, and the females have got less orange. And if you can zoom in, which I'm not going to try at the moment, but I'll see if I can get some footage. Females have a little black spot near their bottom. There's a few little guppies in here living with them. They're in here so that there was a male guppy, but he's passed away now, so there's just 3 females, and they're living in here with these celestial Danios so that we don't get overrun with guppy fry. Unfortunately, not one guppy has made it out without being taken down by these ferocious celestial Pildanios. And down below is just a lone female crib. But yeah, she's just living in here. And this is a really good example, I guess, of dwarf cichlids kept with small fish, and how the community tank would work. Essentially, she's just living in here, living her best life. But you can still see this layer above her, where she's got this, she has a territory, and if anything does stray, you know, just a little bit too close, she will just go up to it, chase it off. You can see she just started to go towards those guppies. They knew better than to stick around. So just be wary of that when you are getting fish, that even if you know, a Crebensis cichlid, probably one of the most peaceful of the dwarf cichlid, well, not one of the most, should I say, I'd probably say Bolivian ram if I'm being honest, but quite a peaceful dwarf cichlids, nothing like their Lake Malawi cousins, which are probably a lot more aggressive, especially when you get the Melanachromis species, which they do look quite similar to. Yeah, they still do require territory, and they still will see off of a fish. You don't get rid of that. And even amongst my celestial Pildanios, if you actually watch them for long enough, you'll see that they start harassing, chasing each other. It's just typical hierarchy between the males. They just want to establish a territory, so you'll never escape it. But at this crib, she's looking quite bland, if I'm honest with you, and that's because she's on her own. She has no reason to show off. She's not feeling threatened. She doesn't feel like she needs to defend her territory. So this is resting colour of a female Crebensis. And in the tank next door, there's a couple of coconut huts and some moss. Well, they are in there, but at the back I should have a Blockhead cichlid. Problem with Blockhead cichlids is they like to hide. He's normally underneath that heater. I'll try and get some footage of him. But just a male blockhead cichlid. I did buy two, but there were two males, so the other one is actually in here. And if we're lucky, look down back there. Yeah, there you go. I'll just zoom in a little. Just make out. There he is. And he's absolutely fine. Between him and this female crib, there's no squabbles. When they come out for food, they just hop around and eat, and the blockhead ignores the crib and the crib ignores the blockhead. So it's been quite a lucky pairing, really. But the male, big male, there he is. And the back, I love these fish. They remind me of, if you're from the UK, of a blenny. And they're a fish that you can find in rock pools, or a shanny, one of the two. And they've got really big, thick lips and these gorgeous blue eyes. And they like to have a lot of flow. So in here we've got at the very back, you can probably just make out, there is a wave maker. These like lots of flow, these fish, and they've got a swim bladder essentially, which keeps them stuck to the ground. In the wild they'll be in quite fast flowing rivers, and they kind of hop or scoot along the aquarium rather than swim like other fish that you're used to. One day I might find a female for this guy, but until then he's just living in here on his own. That's the blockhead cichlid. I've got 3 tanks, so underneath the 420s we've just looked at, I've got 3 40s, and in this tank, this is my leopard frog pleco, honeycomb pleco, and crystal red shrimp tank, and they're all doing really well at the moment. I've got a couple of leopard frogs, they're just hiding at the back. They've only just been moved back in here, so they're settling in. We've had a couple of trappings, but no successful spawn so far. And then the honeycombs, they kind of don't like sitting in caves like at my other plecos. They kind of just like lounging around, so there'll be 1 or 2 in there. You can just get their outline. And the male honeycomb, he typically is behind this sponge filter, and if I go to the side view, you can see there he is, just hanging about there. And what happens is when he's ready to breed, and he's very good at breeding, this guy, he'll swim all the way over to one of these. He typically likes this end one, like the same as this leopard frog pleco, and if he wants that end one, then the leopard frog pleco gives way, and then he will spawn, look after the eggs, and then I will grab the fry once they get to a certain size. The last batch he's had are growing out in here. There's only 3 of them at the moment because these are stragglers from that last batch, probably about a month ago now. And all the others, so all of the fry from leopard frogs and honeycombs, they go into this 40, which is my grow out tank. I used to keep them in 20s, but because there's just so many fish, having more water to dilute the waste, and being able to have my canister filter down here running off of this tank, it helps me just keep everything nice and clean. And you can see here there's a young leopard frog pleco, so that leopard frog pleco is probably about 5 months old, and then we've got a young honeycomb just here, and that guy is probably 2 to 3 months old. And there's only 4 leopard frog plecos left in here. The rest have been sold, and there's quite a few honeycombs at the moment, probably about 12 to 15, and actually most of the rest of these fish are being sold this week. And then what I'll do is I'll move those little ones down in the other tank to allow them to really start growing. But I typically keep them separate in terms of size. The little ones we just looked at in that hang on are probably about half the size of this one here, and if they're not large enough to compete for the food, then they're just going to waste away, unfortunately. So you can't just put them all together, I find. I like to keep them separate and then grow them out in stages, and until they're around the similar sort of size of these ones, so they move over. And I typically find that Plecos, they go for a growth spurt up until probably about 3 months, at least for my fish. Others may have different experiences. Up to about 3 months, and then they take a long time to then keep on growing. They'll start to fatten out or start to go a bit wider before they then start stretching a bit more. Yeah, so this is the honeycombs. Above, I've got lights out at the moment, so let me just get the lights on. This is my tiger pleco aquarium. Alright, so in here's my tiger plecos. There's only 5 in here. These are my largest pleco that I have. They're about 15 centimeters in length, the males. Females probably about 12 centimeters, and we've got a couple of females here. There's a male in there who's very fat, so I'm putting them all on a diet. There's a female in this cave here, and then this is the dominant male here. And they have spawned 3 or 4 times, but unfortunately every time they spawn, the fry, I take the fry away from the male after about after about 2 weeks, and then they go into a breeder box, and then within the next month they will slowly, all at once, just balloon up and die. And I cannot tell you how or why. They still have yolk sac on them and they start to balloon, so it makes me think it might be a bacterial problem. So the last time they done that was probably about April, and since then I've given this tank a massive water change and treated it for bacteria infections and bacterial issues, and they haven't spawned since. So I haven't been able to check if that was the cause, or if that is the likely culprit of these fish failing to get successful spawns, or should I say having the fry grow out successfully. But we're going to keep trying. Typically, again, like my other plecos, they don't spawn in the summer months here in the UK, so we'll see if they have another go over the autumn and winter and early spring, and hopefully we'll get some better luck. But if any of you out there also keep L397 tiger pleco, let me know your experience on the breeding. Have you had that sort of problem before? I've seen online people do say that they have come across that issue, but there doesn't seem to be a hard and fast rule as to why they see the bloat in the fry. Some say to leave with the parents so they eat their feces and stuff like that to help with their gut, but it just seems a bit strange how it happens when they've got the yolk sac. And I've had 4 spawns now where that has happened every time. I haven't fed them either, so it's really strange why it's happening. But yeah, any ideas, feel free to pop some comments below, and yeah, they're all welcome. But yeah, these are the tiger plecos then. Nothing to really report on at the moment. Hoping to get another spawn out of them, and hopefully next time we won't have any issues. So directly above my zebra pleco tank, I have these 2 aquariums. This is empty, and I seem to be getting really obsessed with putting nothing in here and just seeing how much this moss will grow with very little nutrients apart from light and the occasional bit of fish food that I put into the water to keep the biological filtration going. But in this tank, this is one of my new obsessions at the moment, and these are Silari Cardinal shrimp. They're quite rare to get hold of. You can get them from various suppliers, but I got them from 2 different sources when I picked up mine, and I've had them now for maybe 5 months, and you can see that they are absolutely exploding with life in here. They're a type of shrimp that require slightly different parameters than Neocaridina or other Cardinal shrimp. These guys, they like it relatively hard in terms of the water parameters, but they also want the water to be warm. So this tank is 28 degrees Celsius. It's quite hot for a shrimp. And if it starts to get too low, apparently you will have deaths on your hands. So I haven't attempted to drop these low in any way, shape or form. But yeah, that is apparently what happens from what I've read. In terms of keeping them, you can keep them at, I guess my only way to compare them is quite close to Malawi sort of hardness. Actually, that's probably a bit harder, but relatively hard. pH about 7.5, 8 plus is typically better. These are 7.5, and give them very fine foods such as spirulina powder. Another product that I'm using at the moment is called Bacta AE, and it's just a fine powder. And typically actually what they do, and you can see here what they're doing, is they're just picking away at the little bits of algae which I've got just growing everywhere. And they're eating that biofilm, those microorganisms, which is what they're eating, and they look like little little drummers as they work away to get some food. This tank has got an unruly amount of hair algae, which I actually use to feed my vampire crabs, so I'll just get some of that now. Tank these shrimp, I've got bladder snails living with them, which, you know, they're not the most attractive snail to look at, but I find most of my tanks with shrimp do really well if I keep them with snails of some sort. I think they complement each other. But yeah, this hair algae gets a bit out of control. Maybe once every couple of months it just gets really long. I just whisk it out. There might be a few snails in there, but that's all good for the crabs. They love a snail or two. Yeah, just whisk it out like this. There we go. And then we'll feed that to the crabs. So here is my vampire crab tank. Same as when I set up probably a couple of years ago. There are loads of vampire crabs in here. I breed too many from how many I can actually offload to people that want them. They are just very prolific, especially if you can get them happy. I've got a massive range of males and females. There's some in the water here. And at one point I was thinking that I need to get a bigger tank and move them out or have multiple tanks, but then at some point, you know, you're just inundated. You just end up having a bigger tank with more crabs rather than having a bigger tank with more space for them all. So this is a 15 gallon. However, it's got a very large footprint, which is why it can support so many crabs. But you can see at the back there, I've got one of my very pretty females. I'll get a close-up of her. She is absolutely stunning. She's got pure orangey coloration on her, where if I show you this female here, it's kind of a browny red. She looks more vibrant than the standard males, and these two here, I'm trying to show you them through the glass, but these two are males here. You can tell, because visually you can tell straight away because of the size of the claws. Failing that, you can pick them up and flip them up and look at their apron. If it's a triangle, sharp triangle, it's a male. If it's more U-shaped, you've got a female. But we've got this big pile of algae to feed them, so we're just going to pop that in, and the crabs will just eat away at that for the next few days. There's one of the males. You can see he's looking really good. The males hold a lot of the colour. Got a couple of, there's a young one there. There's a slightly older one. Just pop the algae in. It just explodes as it drops in. Looks like a moss ball, doesn't it? And then I'll just leave that in here, and you can see there's a few neo shrimp in here as well. And they just, you know, there's a tiny body of water, but they thrive. I've tried to catch them out, but then the little ones stay in there. The little ones get big and breed. it's a never-ending cycle, and so that they seem to enjoy it in there. But if I leave this now for a little while, keep an eye on it, and if we get any crabs on there, typically what you'll see is the crabs will just climb on, and there'll be about 5-10 of them just all on this ball of algae, just having the time of their lives. Yeah, this is very low maintenance tank. You know, the plants are doing a lot of the work in terms of keeping the water clean. This water goes all the way back to the other side of the tank, but we've essentially got a layer of rocks here, which is then propping up all of the biological substrate, which is housing all the beneficial bacteria. I have got a little sponge filter running in here as well. It does a bit, but it's mainly the actual biological substrate, which the plants are all putting their roots into, that do a lot of the work. So these guys, they'll probably get a water change once a month, and what I do is I just take out all of the water, which will be about 5 gallons worth, and then just replace it with some fresh water. And yeah, the crabs are doing exceptional, to the point that they just don't stop breeding. So the last fish to show you on my tour are my crebensis. So you can see at the back there's one of my females, and it was only yesterday actually that I stumbled across them, and they're spawning. So I've got a male and female in this tank all by themselves, so just them, and she's just darted away into the coconut. And yeah, we've only had them in here for 3 weeks. It just goes to show how prolific this fish is at spawning. You know, I've said it before on one of my other videos, the crebensis is my favourite cichlid to keep. They are just such an interesting fish to watch through the spawning process. You know, the male and female, they typically pair off. It wasn't an easy pair off for these two. The female was typically more dominant. They both came from different sources, so I had to keep the female separate in a breeder box for a couple of days while the male got settled in. And I typically find the males are less territorial, less aggressive than the females. But once they settled in, they quickly set up a breeding site underneath their coconut, and now they've got a massive swarm of baby crebensis that they're taking care of. And over the next few weeks I'll capture how they develop, and essentially the fry will be separated at some point, because they can't all grow up in this tank. That would be madness. And they'll go in with the Pleco grow outs, and yeah, we'll see how they do. But yeah, these are absolutely stunning fish, and I can only recommend that if you are wanting to keep a dwarf cichlid, which is going to give you some real deep dive insight into egg laying fish, how some fish do show parental care compared to a guppy, which would just lay its drop its fry and then eat them. A crebensis will actually spend a lot of time looking after its young. Those of you that are, you know, fish only forever, the next part of this video may not be of interest to you, so feel free to run along. But I've always had a real deep interest in invertebrates and things like that, and I've just thought I'd share on this video some of the other stuff that I've been getting up to lately. So in here, if I can open it, it's a little terrarium. You can sometimes keep, you know, small young snakes and things like this and stuff like that. But in here, there's just a bunch of mud, and within that bunch of mud, if I just have a grab here, we've got Blackfire Millipedes, and these are quite a small millipede to look after. They don't get much bigger than 15 centimeters, so you can see this one's probably, you know, halfway there. They're just a really interesting, fun creature to to look after. You just can watch their legs scroll around. And I have a young family with young kids, and I just wanted something that my kids could touch and interact with a bit more than what my fish and shrimp can do, just to get them interested in nature, because I think if you can get people interested in the little things, then the big things, that just comes much easier. But yeah, there's 4 of them in here, these Blackfire Millipedes. They're really low maintenance pet. They essentially have soil, and you have to put some bits of rotting wood, moss, things like that in there, because that's what they eat. They're a detritivore, like a shrimp in a shrimp tank. And then we've got some sterilised oak leaves which they can eat, and there's a bit of cucumber which they've had last night, and you know, they're not too fussed with eating the cucumber, but sometimes you can come in the mornings and they'll just be chowing down on that cucumber, but this one probably needs to go, and you know, they kind of just rest. There's another one here resting amongst the leaf litter. There's 2 there having a cuddle. Oh, there's 3 there. There you go. There's the other ones. They're all just hiding away. And essentially what I do is take care of them. They don't need much of a change. It's not like fish where you need to give them a water change every week, but you know, they just need a quick spray to keep the moisture in. They like humidity, they don't need moisture. They'll get a spray once a day, just a very light spray, because what happens is the leaves traps the moisture and then keeps it within the soil. So if they did, you know, for whatever reason dry out, they can dig down into the soil to get that moisture that they need. But typically I just find them resting amongst the leaf litter. But I give them a quick spray once a day just to keep that humidity up, keep the moisture in. Being in this fish room as well keeps the humidity up anyway for them. And it keeps it nice and warm for them as well. So these are tropical millipede. Yeah, so that is what is in there. Last thing to share with you today on the tour is my Megasoma rex, which is essentially a beetle. These are beetle larvae. This is the world's heaviest beetle, so it's a rhinoceros or elephant beetle, some people call them. And these are in their early stages of development. I'll get one out in a second. And that's essentially, they eat the same sort of food that my millipedes do at the moment, but when they pupate and become an adult beetle, they will then eat types of fruits and things like that. But they spend most of their life, these creatures, as a larvae state, similar to like what you see of a caterpillar. You know, the caterpillar, butterfly will be a caterpillar for the vast majority of its life, and then they spend a couple of months as a butterfly. But these guys, they'll be a beetle larvae for a couple of years max, and then they'll become a beetle for maybe half a year. Let's see if I can get one out. So here we go. This is a rhinoceros beetle larvae. So this is L2. So keeping beetles, they go through various larval development stages, and that's what they call an L number. And it gets confusing when you keep L number Plecos, doesn't it, at the same time? And essentially L1 is first stage, these are L2. They develop and get bigger and go into L3, and it's after that point, this is when they then pupate, and then they'll pupate and turn into a rhinoceros beetle. So these have got a little bit to go. They look a lot like, if you are from the UK and you watch that I'm a Celebrity show, the witchetty grub, which is actually a moth. They look an awful lot like those, but you can see here, you know, harmless little things, but my kids love these. They think they're the best thing ever. They love helping me change their tubs, which need changing every few weeks. And you can see, look, this is a male. Just having a little trying to work out what's going on. And they stay in these little tubs, and then as they get bigger they'll go into the tub that you can see. This tub that this one's come from is within is going to be the end stage of the tub, where it will end up going into before it pupates. Yeah, it's just trying to work out what am I doing here. You can have a real close look and you can see it's got huge mandibles. Yet to be bitten, but you never know. Yeah, and they're really just interesting things for me anyway to look after. And if you're interested in seeing more about these beetles and about these millipedes that I've got, along with my fish, shrimp and crabs, let me know in the comments and I'll happily share some more information. But just wanted to share these here, so I've not spoken about them before on my channel. I just wanted to give everyone an option to see what I'm up to. So anyway, thank you very much for viewing. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one.